Hi, Michelle. Nice to see you. I think it's only you and me at the moment. You were the first. We're going to be working quite closely. If you're happy to switch on your mic and your video, that'd be fantastic. Sharon, welcome.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I was just saying, actually, we're going to be working on quite closely. So if you're happy to be on camera and with your mic on and stuff, that would be great. Otherwise, you're eating lunch.
My time here is, I just got out of bed and saw your message. So no camera, thank you. Otherwise I would.
No problem. That's the beauty of Zoom, isn't it? You could never have gone to this kind of an event before if you weren't ready. Yeah, no, I love that about it. I'm just going to give it a couple of more minutes. So, Michelle, what do you do?
I'm a social media manager.
Oh, cool. Welcome.
Hi.
Who are you working for? Are you working in an agency or?
No, completely freelance. So I just have small business clients and things like that.
Yeah, such a relevant topic for you then.
Oh, for sure. That's why I was like immediately signed up as soon as I saw it.
Yeah, I bet your clients have this kind of, I mean, it's always one of those things you think about. I think about it for myself. But it's interesting because I've never seen anyone talk about it before. And I just had the idea to do this because last week in the mastermind that I run, we started talking about it and we just went down a massive rabbit hole. And I was like, oh, this is a thing.
See, this is what I'm always telling. I'm mostly on Instagram, so I'm always preaching authenticity constantly.
Yeah.
But it becomes harder when it becomes more professional settings, such as like on
LinkedIn or wherever.
LinkedIn and everything. Yeah. So I was like, might as well see what you got to say.
Yeah, no, it's such an interesting thing. It can be a really tricky line to walk. And I think, also the other thing is it's so personal. It's so individual, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think, so you can't say one thing for every client is going to work. You can't say that. You have to just go by what feels right for that business, that owner, that person, that moment, even that day.
Yeah.
Rizman, hi there, welcome. I was just saying, if you're happy to be on camera and on microphone, it would be great to see your face. We're going to be working with some tough stuff today, so always welcome participation and engagement. Right, I'm going to begin because we're at 1:02. People will still join as we go through, but I just want to not have you late. Right. Hello, Sharon. Right, now where's my thingy? Are we recording? Yes. Did you get a message as you came in that we were recording?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So that one. Okay. Can you see a slide that says my name, Marketing Strategist? Cool. Okay. So I have to admit, everybody. So my today, what we're talking about, as I've said, is authenticity versus oversharing on social media, and whether or not you can, in fact, overshare. So we're just going to get an insight into the reasons why you would share anything personal in a public arena, and also how much is too much. Where do you draw that line? How do you know, as it were, whether you've got it right or not? So some people I work with have been trolled horribly online, and regretted maybe is a strong word, but felt really like when they had shared, it was just a bit over the top, and the response was not something they felt was what's the word, constructive for their business, let's put it that way. If you've never been trolled because you're too scared to speak up and be visible, that's also another thing I deal with quite a lot with my clients, right? The idea of being that visible or being controversial is just too hard, so they would avoid that at all costs. And also, if you're just considering how to position yourself, helping clients understand how to position themselves in your own business and in the public eye. So that's the kind of stuff we're going to be looking at. So working through the nuances of sharing in your marketing and how it can work for you and against you, looking at why you would even bother, why bother, right? So we do talk about trying to be authentic, trying to be there, be present, to be ourselves, but why bother? And what sharing about your personal experience can do to enhance or damage your brand, and exploring that kind of stuff in a safe environment. And hopefully by the end of today, you'll have a fairly practical plan for the kinds of things you can do. And if you work with clients in this arena, then hopefully you've got some guidelines to give them as well. And just getting past any sort of feelings of vulnerability that might be holding you back from doing this. So who am I to talk about this kind of thing? I'm Bonny Williams. I'm a marketing strategist. I work with sustainable business leaders to create effective marketing within their businesses so that they can stop making, what's the word, ad hoc and kind of reactive decisions really, and start making more money. I've been doing marketing for my whole career, more or less. I've founded the Mastermind, the Strategic Marketing Mastermind, which is mostly the way I work with clients. So it's a six-month program, and we meet online every 2 weeks. I also do a lot of work in my local community with an organisation called PACE, which is practical actions for climate and the environment. So I'm very passionate about sustainability. And like I said, I've been doing this a while, 22 years. I'm a coach also. I'm a consultant, mentor, all sorts of things in that kind of thing. But who are you? So if you could just share in the chat, it would be really helpful, just a sort of one-line response to this question. So who are you and what do you do? And this is important just because it helps you to get clear on how you're defining yourself. So I'll just give you a minute. Hi, Steph. Nice to see you today. Okay. So Michelle, hello. You're a social media manager. Brilliant. I think some of you missed it, but Michelle was saying she mostly works with quite small businesses, helping them to kind of curate their content on social media, but looking at specifically how to translate what she does across the different channels. So Instagram, where she's always preaching authenticity, versus LinkedIn, which is more of a kind of traditional professional channel. So Steph, you're doing marketing manager at Rent My, the Airbnb of everything. Fantastic. Sharon, you're a lawyer who's got deep community roots and is a collaborator transitioning roles from executive to legislative branch of government. Wow, amazing. So Sharon, would this be for your personal idea, like kind of brand online, or are you looking at this more kind of from within the context of a role that you're doing within government?
So currently it's my personal brand, but I'm transitioning to a legislative officer role, which is an ombudsman and whistleblower protection function. So I have to make a decision about what it looks like and what platforms and how I engage and how open I will be and vulnerable to whatever people want to say about various issues.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting one. Thanks for sharing. So it's about kind of walking the right line for your job and your professional image as well as who you are. Brilliant. And Rizman, you're a freelance photographer specializing in covering events. Brilliant. Okay, so we've got a sense of who we are and the types of issues that might come up. Thank you all for sharing. It's really good to sort of know who we're talking to. So I suppose just to start from the beginning, what's the point of marketing, right? So what we're really doing here is to create a shop front, which is just a representation of what we do, and it speaks to our ideal client. If you want to look at this one, it's very clearly saying it's an office. It is either an office or wants you to think it is, but it does coffee and cocktails, right? So it's kind of like work and potentially recreational all in the same thing. So what we're looking for is something at a glance that does a similar job, right? And their styling and their branding kind of makes it clear they're attracting professional clientele. But then they or we need to find a reason for our ideal client to buy from us. So we put up a shop front, which you could argue is our social media presence, for example. And then what, right? Then where do we take them? So I covered this a little bit in a webinar I did the other day. So Steph, I think you will have seen this already and you probably know it inside out, but we're talking here about a customer journey. So what we want to do is to go back to basics, really. This is something I was taught like by my professors 20 years ago when I was first learning about marketing, but it's always relevant. So the first step here is just to grab people's attention. Okay, so with our social media presence, we want to grab attention and create awareness of who we are, what we do, and what we offer. So in my mastermind, we spend a long time on this, right? Getting it right, choosing the words, making sure people really understand, broadly speaking, who you are, what transformation you offer, and to whom. The next step, and this is where we're focusing today, is on interest, right? Generating interest in who you are and what you do. And usually this will happen quite naturally if you share with authenticity and a bit of variety and vulnerability and relatability. Okay, so what we're looking at today is really how to generate that interest without stepping the wrong side of a line that we really rather wished we hadn't. Then we got to create desire and action. So the desire really is just about sharing an offer. The offer that we share with our clients must be the right thing for them in that moment. So ideally, we would have chosen something that creates a kind of, just creates a moment where they go, oh, actually, I really do need that. And then action, which is kind of making them take action to work with you, right? Closing the sale, if you want to talk about it in that language. So that could be anything for creating scarcity. Something's going to run out, we've only got 10 places, there's a deadline, or there's a bonus or a reward. So taking action in this context, when we're talking about our marketing, is really about just communicating the reason why they need to do this now. So if we take that potential client through that process systematically and then present them with an offer that suits their needs, and we are clear, authentic, and we have a consistent message, that's how we're going to make sales. That's how we're going to get people to want to work with us. So authenticity then as a means of generating interest. So you can be as clear as you like, but if your offer isn't coming from a place of authenticity, your prospective clients aren't going to feel it, right? So this is where you need to really get down into the detail of your brand. You need to get clear on what you're offering to your customers that makes them feel special, that makes you look different. Yeah, anything over and above that you do for a client is defining your brand just by being there. So you're going to be talking about the way that you present, not just in your kind of product and service, but in your physical appearance, in this is the bit we're talking about today, the things you care about and the things you share about. So your purpose, your values, that stuff, your messaging, how you're feeling, your cycle, your stage of the month, your stage of the day, even your year, your life, that kind of stuff. So we did a big old session of this the other day in terms of, you know, having prospects start to know, like, and trust you. And I was really curious when I was watching a presenter at a summit I was at the other day, and she was talking about mirror neurons in your body. So what she was saying is that as a potential client, you have a set of neurons that will mirror the person who's talking to you. So if they come to you with, you know, passion and integrity and authenticity, your body's going to feel that and receive it and come back with the same level of communication, right? So if you bring your authentic, vulnerable self, they are going to bring their authentic, vulnerable self, and arguably that's where the connections are going to come in. So here I was just sharing this the other day as well about authentic expression, right? This is one of my clients. She's literally standing here hugging a tree. Now, some people would be like, that's not particularly professional, but is professional something she's trying to convey? Not especially. She's extremely well qualified. She's very well positioned and placed to do what she does, which is basically to take people out into nature and have them understand and connect with nature. So her authentic expression on her page and the pictures she's sharing are absolutely saying who she is. And we're getting a sense of that kind of authenticity, if you like. But then where does it flip to vulnerability? So this vulnerability is it is fairly controversial, but it's the bit that sometimes has people start to feel like they know who we are. So I want you to just think about posts where there's been a lot of engagement, and you'll probably find it's ones where people share quite vulnerably, or where they share really passionately, or if they've got a strong opinion about something, or if there's been some injustice or something. And often ones with true stories in, which don't have to be stories about you, but they might well be. And then the ones often without a call to action are the ones that get a lot of engagement. So you're not directing people to do anything particularly, but if you're really being true to who you are and you're showing yourself and being authentic and vulnerable, you'll often get engagement on that. So have a little think about that from your perspective. Has anybody got any kind of examples of posts that they can remember, and that either that they've done or that other people that they've seen or clients have done, where there's been a sort of an expression of vulnerability and it's really generated a lot of engagement? Has anyone got anything they'd be happy to share about? Okay, so no worries. I was just thinking about this just from a kind of a vulnerability hangover perspective as well. So I don't know if any of you have heard about vulnerability hangover. It's a concept that Brené Brown talks about. She's a kind of researcher into shame. So the idea about this is that when you take an emotional risk, especially in the public arena, so you might show yourself personally or ask for something without knowing if it would be accepted, reveal something that you had previously kept hidden. You're risking rejection, right? You're risking a judgment from your audience. And that invokes a really primal fear, right? So we are programmed as people to be tribal beasts, if you like. Our lizard brain needs us to belong, needs us not to be rejected. So this possibility of being rejected for doing something or for revealing something that we hadn't previously revealed can bring up a massive fear. And actually, I noticed that with my clients a lot, that often what stops people from progressing in their business is not a lack of know-how, a lack of knowledge, or any of those things. It's much more often a sense of vulnerability from being seen, and a sense that they might be judged for that. So then you risk this, and then you immediately, maybe days, maybe immediately, maybe weeks later, you feel a mixture of kind of anxiety, shame, regret, frustration, vulnerability. Can anyone relate to this feeling? Has anyone got a sense of what a vulnerability hangover feels like, or have felt it or know somebody who has? I was talking to a friend about this the other day, and she is an introvert, a big introvert. She doesn't usually go out drinking, for example. She said she'd gone out drinking with a bunch of mums from the school run, and she'd drunk rather more than she normally would, because that situation put her in a position where she was already uncomfortable. And then having done that, she felt she had overshared, if you like, that she had revealed more of herself than she was okay with. And the next day she was like, oh my God, I'm never, ever going out again. And I was like, was it really that bad? What did you even say? And she was like, I don't know, just something, I don't know. She couldn't even think what it was, right? But there was a sense in her that what she had done was unacceptable, and she felt hugely vulnerable because of it, and sort of resolved, if you like, not to do that again, which almost reinforces this kind of introvert perspective. So that's really what's that risk, if you like, from oversharing. So why would you risk that in your marketing, and importantly, how would you avoid it? So I want you to just do some thinking now and a bit of writing. We're going to consider a couple of questions. So the first question I want you to answer for yourself is, what do you stand for in your business? So this kind of question, it might be something along the lines of values, right? You might stand for education, self-actualization. Personally, I stand for sustainability. I want sustainable business to outperform unsustainable business. It might be specific causes that you support. Like personally, I will always support women's empowerment, just always will. It's really a cause close to my heart. And, you know, it's about kind of people or businesses or minorities that you might stand for, stand up for, raise money for, you know, in cheerlead, if you like, from a business perspective. So just spend a moment and write down some of the things that your business supports and stands for. Okay. And we're going to move on and ask ourselves another question. Okay, so hang on, I'll just give an example. So this is one of my clients, Kath, right? She's an environmental leadership coach. And she's put this post up the other day, which just did make me laugh. She's saying, what do you need right now? I just caught myself doing the one more email before I get up and go to the loo thing. How often do we do that? Skip lunch because we're too busy, stay up late to get things done, or wait until we're bursting before we take a break. This is your permission slip to stop doing that. It's not helping you or your cause. It's just feeding the myth that we're more valuable when we're more busy. Wearing ourselves out to fuel the capitalist machine. Nope, time out, break time. So you can see in here, she's brought some of her what I stand for to the post, right? So she's talking about not wanting to fuel the capitalist machine. She's talking about standing for our own needs. So in her role as a coach, an environmental leadership coach, she's putting up what she stands for. She's sharing something pretty vulnerable, right? Which is to do with whether or not she's going to go for a wee. But actually, it's in the interests of supporting her brand. So you can see that in that context, what she's doing is actually reinforcing her core message. Okay, so then the next question I'm going to ask you is, what do you care about as a person? So that's the sorts of things you might stand for as a brand or as a business. And then what do you care about as a person? So personally, what do I care about? My children, my family, my home, my hometown, those kinds of things, right? So what people or places or causes do you care about as a person? So I mentioned before that I care about women's empowerment. That's actually a personal commitment. It's not particularly related to my business, although many of the business leaders that I support are business women. They aren't all. That's not my exclusive business, niche. So I would put that more in my caring about as a person cause. The women's empowerment is a personal thing. So for you, I want you to just think about these things. It's not to say that you're going to share about them. The idea here is to understand what makes you tick and what's important. At the end, we're going to draw out which of those you might be happy to share about. Like, I'm not happy to share about my children on social media, but they are like center of everything I do. So they're deeply close to my heart, and I can find other things to share about, and I'm fine with that. So when you've made a note about what you care about as a person, I'm going to move on a little bit and think about some other things. But I just wanted to share this example with you. I just saw this morning. To be honest, he's not a client of mine, but I noticed it because it sort of stood out on LinkedIn. So he's saying, parenting has tested every emotion of mine with such regularity and such overwhelming force that I simply no longer get upset by anything at work. Work is just something I do and care about when not on the parenting roller coaster. Trying to reason with a 3-year-old about toilet time is way harder than any task or relationship in my day job. And in this scenario, I literally pick up someone else's crap. Now, he only put up that post a week or so ago, but I noticed that he got 238 engagements on it and 38 comments. So it's a pretty personal thing to share. And what was interesting when I went and looked at his other posts is it's very much not his normal style. He doesn't usually post about this. And if you look over here at his hashtags, it says, talks about cloud security, cybersecurity, right? So this is not his normal topic. And yet he's got great engagement on it. So he's gone with a level of authenticity here, which can really have him stand out in a crowd, right? So I noticed this because it was authentic, because it was personal, because it was, those things really. Is he building a brand about cybersecurity here? No. But what he is doing is helping his clients to know him, like him, and trust him, because he's revealing a bit about himself. So the psychology behind that reveal, if you like, is really strong, right? It's a really interesting and bold move for him to make. So now the next question I'm going to ask you to answer is, what makes you unique in your business and as a person? So do you have some really unusual or unique experiences in your past? Anything that you've done that would be like, wow, that's an interesting fact? Have you got some interesting or unusual qualifications? A lot of people that I'm working with now are starting to get qualifications in sustainability in that particular area, that sector, or really niching down on, say, digital sustainability, getting kind of low carbon websites, that sort of thing. So what have you got there that you can share? Things that you've got in common with your audience, which could help bridge a gap between you and them, if you like. So do you have an interesting upbringing? Do you have privilege or lack of privilege, which puts you on a different level to other people your ideal client might be looking at? Have you got a story you can share? So for example, one of the things that I'm happy sharing, but it doesn't particularly support my brand, but people find fascinating, is that I grew up on a commune. Right, growing up on a commune is not particularly common, but people always say, oh my God, that's so interesting. I really want to hear about it. It always piques an interest. But I don't particularly talk about it in relation to anything I'm doing on social media, because what I've found is that's like a massive red herring to anything that I'm doing in a professional context. So yes, it makes me unique, but I don't feel it's something I particularly want to share about in that context. On the other hand, my experiences that I've got that are unique, which make me able to do my job currently, that are interesting, are that I grew up with Chinese medicine as my first choice for medicine, if you like, for healthcare. So I don't use a doctor, I always use Chinese herbal medicine or acupuncture. And in addition, I'm a coach. And in addition, I've got a marketing overlay. So if you overlay coaching and marketing and a Chinese medicine look at things, you get an understanding of energy in the sales and marketing process, which is pretty unique to me. So what I'm looking for in this is for you to go really personally and ask yourself, what makes you unique that your audience might find interesting? Okay, and then I just wanted to share this because it really did make me laugh. So Kate is one of my masterminders. And when we first worked together, she's a fertility specialist, right? So she works with acupuncture and Chinese herbs. And she didn't used to share some of the more kind of, what's the word, day-to-day conversations that she would have with her clients. But then I sort of challenged her a little bit on that and said, well, why aren't you talking about the sticky issues that actually come up in your treatment room? So for example, one of them here, she's talking about male factor fertility. She said, I don't particularly talk about that. I'm not sure people are comfortable hearing about it. But then actually when she brought that up on social media and started talking about the male aspect of fertility, if you like, people were like, wow, this is really interesting. She's prepared to talk about sperm in the public eye. They were interested, right? So she piqued everybody's interest by being completely open and transparent about the stuff she deals with day in, day out. So she's brought a level of authenticity to her sharing, which, yeah, might make people feel awkward, but, you know, they always can choose not to look. But for those it doesn't make feel awkward, That's the gold, right? Those are the ones who go, wow, she's really talking about something interesting. You know, your basal body temperature chart, she's talking about how I can take my temperature and understand when I ovulate. That's actually really interesting. It's not your everyday conversation, but what she's saying and where she's saying it, the platform she's using for it, is actually really piquing people's interest. And then the final question to ask yourself is, what would you not share? So anything too personal that makes you too vulnerable. Anything that could be great for marketing, but feels just too much. So what boundaries have you got, if you like? So for example, if you are a recovering alcoholic and you feel that that is going to affect your chances of promotion, you might be misjudging your boss, you might be misjudging the organization you're in, but you might not. And that level of share might feel too vulnerable. If, on the other hand, you've been clean for 20 years now and alcohol, you're still calling yourself an alcoholic, but it's very much something in your past, you might be completely fine with it. It might not be an issue at all. So, you know, similarly, some of you might be happy sharing about children, but would never talk about your partner. Others might be only happy sharing about strictly business topics, but in which case, what can you find that's relatable? And where is the edge of that? You know, talk to the bit that sort of sits at the edge that people might be interested in, but doesn't feel too hard to share. Okay, now I'm going to get you to have a look at your answers for those 4 questions and ask yourself, what do you feel you could safely share about in the public arena, which would make your audience feel they know you, like you, and can trust you? So any stories or experiences that build their sense of trust in you. And I want you to put these into your social posts strategically over the next couple of weeks, and then notice the response to them. So I'm going to give you a minute. I'm actually going to stop talking and give you a minute to kind of come to some conclusions about the kinds of things you'd be happy sharing with. And I want you to pick something out and share it with the people on the call. I'm just going to be quiet for a couple of minutes while you think those things through. Okay, so Sharon, how did you get on? Did you find something that you felt you were happy with?
I've been debating this one because it's very personal and could come across as performative versus authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So performative allyship. So what my new role is all about is administrative fairness. So just in short, procedural, substantive, and relational. And if you think of those 3 things on a triangle, the relational component is the one that I'm focusing on in terms of trauma-informed care and things of that nature, engagement with Indigenous people and newcomers. And so I want to share the story of my grandparents having immigrated and how when I was in high school and said I wanted to be a lawyer, my high school principals laughed and said, "You'll never be a lawyer." And then say, now imagine if that happened, I know how that feels. That's one event, one incident in my life. And it still comes up at times. But imagine if it was not just one event, but every day of your life you experience that. And then imagine if it's not just once a day, every day of your life, but multiple times every day of your life. And then imagine if it's not just your life, but your parents' life before you and your grandparents' life before you. So I like how that comes together, but I'm really struggling to start with details of my story, partly because I don't want to mention my high school principal in particular. I could do it more generically, but I also feel it's just so personal that I'm not entirely comfortable. So that's what I'm kind of wrestling with.
Yeah, that's such a good one though.
Right?
But
But
how do you feel when you say that out loud, like you just did? How do you feel about how vulnerable you are? So can you say that story without hurting?
No, I feel sad. I feel empowered, but I feel sad. I mean, they go together.
So you're still feeling it, and it's still pretty hard to hear.
I felt it more when you asked the question than when I was telling it.
Okay.
Because it will be a reporter who will want to see me cry. That's their thing, not in a bad way. That's just their thing. So I'm like,
their job.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with him. We've grown up together in my profession and his profession. We know each other throughout our career. But given that relationship, I suspect that I would be even more vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting one. So from that perspective, I think because it relates so beautifully to what you do, I would consider, and I've done this in the past, actually almost writing yourself a script around it. So you find a form of words that you take great care of, that really has no blame attached to anybody, that expresses what you feel but doesn't access what you feel, and that you feel safe behind. Right? And if you can find a way to tell the story that can feel safe, then I think you should be, it would be a useful one to use. And then you might say to yourself, I'm only going to use this in certain contexts, or I'll only use it once, or I'll only whatever. Sometimes, people choose brand stories, don't they? They choose a story to represent their brand, and then it gets rolled out all the time. You might choose, a number of different little examples, but it is incredibly powerful when you say, you describe something so hurtful, that somebody would say that. The other way to do this, to stop yourself feeling so vulnerable about it, would be as if you told it as a story about someone else.
Sort of a hypothetical, or because
or I worked with someone a while ago who.
Yeah, I couldn't say that because I can't not say,
because it's not the truth.
So yeah, that wouldn't be authentic for me. But I could do a hypothetical.
Yeah, imagine if. Well, you did the imagine ifs.
Yeah.
You could even say, I was reading about someone a while ago who wanted this, and their head teacher told them that. Do you see what I mean? Because you do read that on LinkedIn quite a lot, don't you? I read it on LinkedIn.
Yeah, and somebody told me a story about a friend of theirs who was dyslexic and, was supposed to be graduating and went in and was told he had a grade 2 teaching or reading ability, and has been bitter ever since, rightfully so, but hasn't, but I mean, and maybe it's more, how many of us have a story like this?
Nice, yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. So you find this form of words that feels safe for you, but is rooted in authenticity and truth. So you can go right there if you need to and ask yourself about those feelings. You can feel that like as if it's you, right?
Yeah. Thank you. That's very helpful.
Brilliant. Michelle, how did you get on? Did you think of something either for you or for a client, or where did you get to?
Yeah, so I'm a huge proponent of like mental health in the workplace. So it's kind of like finding working against that hustle culture and things like that. I don't like the idea of pushing yourself to the point of breaking, essentially. And I frequently put that into posts and content that I usually use across different social media platforms.
Got it.
And I actually did it a couple of weeks ago on LinkedIn, and it was one of the better performing pieces that I have actually shared. So
So what did you share specifically? Something about yourself?
Yeah. So it's kind of like how I burnt out of working in corporate and everything like that. Yeah.
So that story, that kind of burnout story, is great if you're trying to attract an audience of people who has experienced burnout. Is that your target market? Is that your clientele?
Well, yeah, because I work with a lot of small business owners, so they're usually juggling everything at once. So those are the people I'm trying to help the most. And so by focusing on easing someone's stress and how I overcame it, and how you don't actually have to put everything on yourself.
Yeah.
It's a way for me to promote what I do at the same time, but without being in your face with that. It's the 80-20 rule right there.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you saying is that you're talking to business owners who are often trying to do it all themselves. So are there any other ways you can think of to share your version of the juggle, your version of entrepreneurialism, your version of your story, your background, your experience, anything that can be relatable, but that actually makes you slightly different, interesting, unusual, unique?
I think to open up about my current process of how I'm able to understand when it's time to step away for a day or two, or to take a step back and with my clients in tow and just be like, right, here's what we need to do in order to kind of calm both of us, if you know what I mean.
Right. So sharing your own coping mechanisms, if you like, you feel that's going to help them relate to you and have them know she understands, she gets it, she's talking to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that's a really good call, because for you, sharing a burnout story about a burnout from within the context of corporate, for example, might not have the same impact as something that's very much speaking to their current struggle. So if they're mostly small business owners and you can share about your small business based experiences, that I think is probably going to bring the level of vulnerability and authenticity that they will relate to more readily, as it were.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, it's I could take a cheap shot and I can go in all vulnerable and expose myself. And I call it a cheap shot because if you go in on social media with something really, really personal, you will get engagement. But what has it done for you? And I suppose that's the line we're trying to walk, is like, it's only any point if that's actually attracted your ideal market, or if it's somehow got people to understand that you are now better at your job because of it. Yeah, so that's really what I'm looking for, is those little nuggets that you're happy to share that make a big difference. Like personally, for example, I do work, often I work with sustainable brands. Now I spend my time voluntarily on sustainable issues, sustainability, and I understand the mindset behind that and the frustrations behind that, and it drives me nuts. And I can talk to that profile, if you like, I can speak about that. And that is going to reinforce my ideal client's sense that I get it, I get their struggle, and also I understand about the fact that at the end of the day they've still got to run a business.
Yeah.
So that's the sort of thing we're looking for here.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing, Michelle. Do you feel you've got a little bit more of a clarity around what you can and might want to use?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
And do you feel you can ask this of your clients now as well? Because you're in that really interesting position where you get to bring this conversation to other people.
Yeah, so I'm always asking them exactly, because I have to speak in their voice essentially. I'm always asking them about what they care about the most in the world, aside from their business and things like that, so I can incorporate that into it. So it's very much, I'm used to doing it for other people, but not for myself.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? It's often harder to do for ourselves. Actually, just then when I put the timer on, I was like, let me write down my own ones, and just see what they are, see if there are any that I missed, because you can never do this work too much, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So Ritu Partner, I can see that you've just joined us. I don't know if you've hello, picked up a couple of bits about what we're talking about, but what we're looking at here really is about how to walk this line, how to find something that you're happy to share that would benefit your brand, as if you like. So do you want to just tell us briefly what you do?
First of all, apologies for joining late. I was on another call and it just kept trying to wrap up and it just became very late. I'm really
no
so
problem.
sorry.
No problem.
So I'm a coach. I am a transformational life coach who essentially deals with millennials and trying to help them navigate the conflict of their bringing up versus what the world is as we know. I mean, the world that has grown too much. And what I've begun to realize is that there is, I personally faced it. There's a slight pull back with whatever we have grown up. So, for example, if I were to talk about LinkedIn, it's all about showcasing what you do, how good you are at something, what is the best way to navigate something that is in direct conflict with what I have been brought up with, which is, put your head down and do your good job and things will happen, the success will follow or the world will notice. So I wanted to kind of come here because I'm now navigating LinkedIn as a platform to get more clients, to get clients to come to me, and I've started writing articles, but I have faced this constant struggle within myself on sharing. And I've also found, again, this is coming from me, and I mean, no judgment as such, but I've also found it a little overwhelming when I see a lot of personal stories getting shared, a lot of things of struggle and emotions getting shared, which makes me uncomfortable. And then I kind of translate that into, okay, if I share this about myself, it's going to make the others uncomfortable as well. So then I'm too much in my head, and then it just doesn't work because I'm not doing the job, and then it just kind of spirals.
I really hear you. Yeah, you can overthink it. You can, and then you aren't sure where to begin. So when we finish, I'll share the recording of our session. There are a few questions that I asked people to think through, and I will suggest you do that. But just very briefly, what they are is, what do you stand for in your business, right? So you're standing for transformation. You're standing for people becoming the best version of themselves. Yeah. Maybe lots of other things too. And then what do you care about as a person? What other causes close to your heart? Maybe, personally, I care about my children, my family, my home, the environment. And those are the things that I really care about. And then I asked you, what makes you unique? What puts you in the position? Is it your upbringing, your background, your values? Like, you're actually talking really specifically there to a set of values that you got from your upbringing. And you're not the only one who has those values. You're not the only one who feels uncomfortable when people share in that depth on LinkedIn, on a professional platform. You're not the only one who feels challenged by that level of exposure, right? So you've actually got right there in that very first little description from you, there's a real nugget of connection there, possibility for you to connect with a collection of people who share your heritage and your upbringing, and who are also like, yeah, this is feeling kind of hard to read, to be honest. So for you, it's looking at what makes you unique in your business and as a person that you can use to relate to your audience. And then the next question I was asking was, what would you not share? Right? So personally, I don't share about my children. Where is your boundary? Where is it not okay to go? And if you can quickly guide yourself through those questions, well, not quickly, but take your time and guide yourself through those questions, you should find some stuff which actually leads you to a path that you can navigate through social media that has you feel okay with what you're sharing, and still has you share enough that your audience can start to know you, like you, and trust you. They say to themselves, okay, she's been there, she's gone through it, she gets it. She's worked with enough people like me that I feel confident she could take care of me. So they're trusting you. And if you share a bit about your own personal likes and loves and cares and causes, then they're going to be like, oh yeah, I think I get a sense of who she is. And that means they can warm to you and understand that working with you would feel safe.
Sure.
Right, so that's where we're aiming there.
Sure.
Okay, so just so what I was just saying was, let's put these strategically into our posts, our social posts over the next couple of weeks, and see what kind of response we get to them. Because you can take what I was calling a cheap shot and do a massive reveal of something highly personal, and you probably get a lot of engagement on it. But is that what you want for your brand? Right, so it's about choosing to walk a really kind of skillful line there, strategic line, if you like, and making that brand presence reinforced rather than weakened by sharing something.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
You're welcome. So here we're talking about, yes, I was just saying share it, share the things that you've come across. So I think hopefully that kind of gives you the vulnerability, authenticity bit, and hopefully you've now got an idea of how you can walk that line, how you can develop a set of words that feels safe for you, a set of issues that you're happy to share on, which make people feel like they've got a sense of who you are. Also, we talked very briefly about marketing being clear, authentic, and consistent in messaging. I don't advocate for consistency of posting every day. I think that's over the top. And as long as your message when you speak is consistent with your message the last time you spoke, I think that's good. So I will share, if you're interested, about my strategic marketing mastermind that's just starting in a week or so. And if that's something of interest to you, then you're very welcome to come along to my taster session, which is going to be next week. I'll just put a sharing link for you there. Or if any of you are interested in having a look more about what I do, I will also share my website. Right, that's my website. So you can go there and have a little look. No, it isn't. Helps if I can type, doesn't it? Okay. Right, so the mastermind that I run is currently a 6-month mastermind, and I work with groups of 6 people. We kind of meet every 2 weeks, and we come together to bring a strategy for that client and to make something that really feels like it's them and it's, you know, personal to them and it works. This is just a couple of testimonials from different clients who I've been working with over the past, how long, don't know, year or so. Both of those I've done a kind of private work with, but the strategic mastermind is something a little bit different. So masterminding is a really specific process where you, as a group, you come together to focus on each person's issue, one after the other. So for example, if you brought the issue of what can I share on my social media that feels authentic but not too vulnerable, we would bring that to your hot seat and we would talk about it as a group. So as a group of 6 business leaders, you would form the kind of support structure, if you like, that brings you ideas and support and expertise and experience. So that's kind of how the mastermind works. And I have brought that as a way of working, because over the 22 years or whatever it is I've been working with clients, what I realized is, like, putting this stuff into place takes a long time. It takes a lot of doing. It takes support and courage and bravery and accountability. And I can go into a business and make a brilliant marketing strategy, but will it actually work? Only if the person has got the wherewithal to carry it out without me. And most likely what happens is they feel too vulnerable to become that visible, and they don't carry out the strategy that we put together. So this is now how I work, because I know it works. If I spend 6 months with you while you make the transition, while you implement your marketing strategy, I know you'll get the results. So you'll be working smart, not hard. Strategic decisions are often frightening to take, but actually in the end mean less work. And they also mean less money, right? So if you choose to spend money, you spend it only on the things that are actually going to work. And I don't know about any of you, but I can be victim to procrastination. So that's also a lot less likely, because you're held accountable. Every 2 weeks we'll be saying to you, how did you get on with that project you're working on? And if you haven't got on and you need some support, well, then there's all the support there. But if you have got on, we celebrate, right? We celebrate a lot. It's good fun. So this is just one of my current masterminders, Alison. She's an acupuncturist, and she says she's never been in a mastermind before. But I came highly recommended. And within the first few weeks, she'd used my marketing system and strategic approach to quickly identify her audience and create messaging. She says, I'm seriously impressed by her brilliant marketing mind and ability to give great advice. I wasn't sure about being in a mastermind, but I learned from all the others. I highly recommend working with Bonny. Now, that business of learning from the others is something that you have experienced this morning, right? So in talking to one another, in hearing each other's experiences of what you're doing in your marketing, you get a sense of how that might relate to you, how it might change things for you. So the mastermind includes 2 60-minute strategy sessions. So when we first begin, you and I will work one-to-one and really get clear on your objectives for the mastermind. They're different for every single business, and we'll get that really clear. And then probably 3 months in, we'll do the same. We'll check in, we'll say, how are you getting on? Have you reached where you were hoping to? And we'll make another plan for the second half of the mastermind. Also, we meet every couple of weeks online, as I mentioned. So we do hot seating and accountability when we're meeting. So those are 2-hour meetings every couple of weeks. I'm going to share with you all my marketing forms and templates and samples that I've gathered up over the last 22 years. Not all of them that you're going to be wanting, but I'll share all the ones that you need. And 18 video lessons, which basically cover my 7-factor marketing success system. So it's a system which you can apply to this business, your next business, a client's business, any business, but it's all basically about bringing in the right kind of marketing systems. Also, we track your metrics and your accountability. So if your aim here in the mastermind is to bring in new clients, we're tracking how many new clients you've got, and we'll track that over time. And the Cadence, which is the platform I work on, my coaching platform, will help you to stay on top of those targets. As a group, we communicate throughout the 2 weeks, not just when we meet, but in between times. There's a message board and a forum where you can stay connected with fellow masterminders. So the investment is $3,333 for the 6 months, or if you want to pay monthly, it's $597. I'm going to be having my doors open for the mastermind for the next couple of weeks, and we're starting around the second week in November. We'll be beginning. So if you want to get in, now's your moment. I open the doors 3 times a year, so I won't be opening them again until January. But for the moment, I'm just I'm just kind of curating my group of 6, if you like. So yeah, if anybody's interested, you're very welcome to go to my website, which I just mentioned before, and that's where you can enroll. So the marketingstrategist.uk, don't put a .co in there. Or you're very welcome to jump on the phone with me if you need to talk something through. This is just a testimonial from one of my other masterminders. If you have the opportunity and you're not sure where your business is going, or if you have marketing only partly sussed, or if it all just feels too blooming hard, my experience is that the mastermind will make almost more difference than you can imagine. If I had my time again, I wouldn't even hesitate. This is the best choice I've made for many years. So Susanna's a novelist. She's trying to get her novels out there and be published and get an agent. So yeah, that is it from me. Remember, whatever we're doing, let's do it together. It's going to take all of us. So whether you're joining my mastermind or not, I wish you every success, all of you. And do share, right? If you're sharing any more posts and you're feeling vulnerable about them, tag me and I'll be right there and support you. It'd be great to see you. So anybody got any questions, then do hang on now. Otherwise, I'm very happy that you spent your time with me today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bonny. I know I missed most of it, so I'm going to wait for your recording and have a look at it. But thank you so much for this. Seems very insightful, and thank you so much for today's session.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming, Mitupana. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Bonny. Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye. Bye.
Yes, thank you very much, and for such a nice, quick engagement.